So friends, each passing day, we find that more and more individuals are interested and curious about feeling healthier, feeling happier, and what they can do to assist their bodies. Do you think that's correct? You know, we've been hosting our Bella Vita programs. If you don't know about our Bella Vita program, it's a 10-day in-house lifestyle center that we've ran for the past 20 years. And individuals come and stay at our facility. And for the first 5 days, they're cleansing and detoxifying. We're really focusing on assisting the detox pathways of the body. And we're also providing them fresh living juice. We're doing carrot juice. We're doing green juice. We take them outside in the professional gym. We do a sauna and skin brushing. And then on the fifth day, we incorporate raw gourmet food as well. And usually what we find from individuals is they're on this mission to find out why they are not feeling well. And we meet individuals who have tried a myriad of different things. I mean, they've gone to a holistic doctor, they've gone to a conventional doctor, they've done acupuncture, they've tried it all. And they go, why has my health not improved? And you know, it's really interesting because we find individuals who have come through our doors and they realize that, you know, just through assisting my body, just through a detoxification approach, just through assisting my dirty genes, I'm able to regain and improve my health. And usually, a lot of times, we have individuals who come through our doors. And they say, you know, when I was in my 30s and even going into my 40s, I was hardworking. I mean, I was grinding it every single day, making sure that I could be that breadwinner for the family. And I wasn't necessarily focusing on my health. I wasn't necessarily paying attention to the foods that I was putting in my system. I wasn't necessarily paying attention to the exercise that I should be receiving. I wasn't necessarily focused on the water, the fluid intake that I was receiving. And they say, and then, you know, it seemed as if I transitioned into my 40s, into my 50s, and I started to notice this lack of energy. I started to notice that I was having fatigue. I was noticing body aches, maybe stress, maybe anxiety, maybe even depression. And they come to our Bella Vita program and they want to renew their lives. They want to feel better and they want to feel healthier. And that's why we've been so excited to assist individuals for so many years, because in a matter of 10 days at the program, we see lives dramatically change. And it's so neat when you see somebody come into the program. They don't have a smile on their face. They're hunched over. They're not feeling well. And then in 10 days, they walk out of the door and they're jogging out. I mentioned at our last in-person health and healing crusade, we had a gentleman. He may actually be here this weekend. And he came through our doors because he was on medical leave. He was extremely jaundiced. He was experiencing issues with his liver, and his doctor said, you know, you cannot go back to work with the condition of health that you are in right now. And he came into our lifestyle center. He said, you know, I don't know what to do because my ALT enzyme is extremely elevated, and my doctors are extremely worried. They don't know what I should do, and they're putting me on medical leave. He said, so I decided to come to your program. A family member told me about your program, and you know, I wanted to give it a shot. I don't necessarily know if it's going to help me, but I want to try this. And it was really neat because day one went by, day two went by, and you started to see his energy started to revive. The yellow in his skin started to fade. And the swollen liver started to subside and the pain was decreasing. And he left Bella Vita. He went to his doctor a few days later and he had blood work done again. And to the doctor's surprise, the doctor said, you know what? Your ALT enzyme is 10 points from normal. His ALT enzyme was, I believe, 150 points above what it should be. So he was excited, but we didn't do anything that crazy on him. We assisted his detox pathways of the body, which is fabulous. So in this presentation, we really want to focus on some toxins that are out there. What are some of these toxins actually doing and how are they affecting our bodies? And we also want to look at how we can assist our genes for ultimate health recovery. We really want to dig deep with you. And this is what we do at Bella Vita program as well. So I hope this is going to be educational for you and you will learn some information as we continue here. So, do you recognize, and we see this a lot as well, do you recognize that despite the medical advancement that we have, despite the technology that we have, there's still so many people who are sick and tired. And usually it's sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? I mean, we see this all the time. So I'm going to look at some of the things to be aware of, which most of you, I imagine, are familiar with already. So, things to be aware of. Nutritional deficiencies. Have you heard of this before? Certainly consume food that is rich in nutrition. It's sad because the average individual, they're eating out of a can, they're eating out of a package, or they're throwing it in the microwave so it's cooked maybe the fourth time. Excess sugars, that's a big one, right? How about unhealthy fats? Right? But as we continue here, what we want to look at is the fact that we want to assist our body and give our body as much nourishment as we can, but something happened about 60 years ago. Do you know what that was? About 60 years ago, there was a flood of toxins that came into our environment. And our bodies were not designed to be toxic. Yes, God designed our system to have detox pathways and different organs that do specific jobs that are phenomenal, but we weren't designed to just be toxic individuals. Would you agree? So looking at toxins, and some of these toxins are really scary when you actually look into them. One toxin specifically we're going to look at here, and what we find is they disrupt many different functions of our system. They damage every aspect of our physiological function. They play a role in virtually all disease, and they're damaging to our system. Have you heard of benzene before? Benzene is a toxin that we are bombarded with every single day. Have any of you gone to the gas station before and filled up your car with gas? I'd assume so, right? Benzene is in the fuel that we put in our vehicles. And benzene has been associated with damaging our DNA. It's been associated with a higher risk of cancer. And we breathe this in every single day. Have you ever thought of when you're pumping your gas to try to stand upwind so you don't have to actually breathe in the fumes? So there are many other toxins as we see, and I've given you some of the abbreviations because they are very long. And they're complex toxins when you actually look into them. And we're bombarded by the majority of these every single day. But this specific toxin that we are going to look at here is PCBs. Have you heard of PCBs before? So PCBs, they were manufactured from 1929 until they were banned, when? 1979. These were banned toxins, okay? But just because they were banned in 1979, products that were manufactured before 1979 still affect us today. And what we see here is that PCBs are found in food, lubricants, plastic containers, and carbon copy paper manufacturers. Paper manufactured before 1979 still contains PCBs. Everything I listed here, manufactured before 1979, contains PCBs. And these are very damaging for our system. As we continue, we will take a look here at some of these PCBs. So they damage the immune system. They damage the reproductive system, our nervous system, our endocrine system. And you think, why am I not doing well? Why am I having some issues that are taking place within my life? Can there be a toxic association with our poor health? And I certainly believe there is. Sorry, let me speed up here. Okay, they inhibit the production of our thyroid hormones. And PCB levels are now so high that they appear to cause a totally preventable 24% of all heart attacks. Have you thought of toxins being associated with heart attacks? When I've spoken with individuals before, they haven't necessarily, connected the two together, but it's certainly the case. But there is some research done, and what they've shown was that mothers who breastfeed, they had a lower level of PCBs in their blood. But the baby who was drinking the milk was consuming those PCBs, and the poor little child was being toxic themselves. So, as we look at the PCBs, we also look at another toxin here. I imagine you're familiar with BPAs. Are you familiar with BPAs? So BPAs here are contained in many food cans and packaging. Now, thankfully, science has done a great job, and a lot of times you'll see a package that will say BPA free. But if you're consuming a conventional little glass of water, maybe a little juice box, and it's not BPA free, it is disrupting your body, and here's why. When you eat canned soup or drink even soy milk from a BPA-coated container, you will increase your BPA levels more than tenfold. Is that big? That's huge. So, not only that, but BPAs disrupt the endocrine system of the body, which regulates virtually all aspects of the body's metabolism function. Do you want to consume some BPAs here? I'm not interested in that, right? Also, what's interesting, for example, having a level of BPA in your urine above 5 micrograms per liter doubles your risk of diabetes. So even diabetes can be associated with BPAs here. So higher incidence of chronic disease and can increase rate of aging. Block the receptor sites on the cells that the insulin activates to allow sugar in. So you may be diabetic and you're wondering, okay, maybe I've changed my lifestyle. I have lowered my blood sugar and I'm doing really well. But usually we'll find individuals, and what we hear from them is, I've adopted my lifestyle and I'm doing great, but sometimes it can be hard to stay on a strict lifestyle to assist my health. And they've fallen off the bandwagon a little bit, and they experience the elevated blood sugar again. But when they find they detoxify their system and they purify the detox pathways of the body, they start to eliminate these toxins that we are bombarded with. Their blood sugars start to normalize again, which is really neat, isn't that? So with BPAs, we also see that they gradually clog the liver, they block insulin receptor sites, they damage our genes, and Jessica's going to be speaking more on our genes. They undermine DNA repair and recovery. And this is a huge problem, isn't it? The President's Cancer Panel of 2010 found that there are about 80,000 chemicals within the United States. Is that a lot? 80,000 chemicals. But the sad part is the majority of them are understudied, or they haven't even been studied at all. And these are in our environment. And we're supposed to thrive, and we're supposed to live and have energy and enjoy our lives. Isn't that right? So the more toxins you have burdening your body, the greater the damage to your detoxification pathways. So the best thing we can do in assisting our body is to, one, eliminate these toxins that we are bombarded with, but also assist our detox pathways as much as possible. So looking at BPAs again, they cause digestive problems. They cause mitochondrial disorders. They damage our genes, and they affect our hormone imbalance as well. And they affect our immune system. So through assisting our body, through assisting the detox pathways of our system, there are a few things that we want to do and we want to incorporate as well. But you know, the majority of people, they don't necessarily think of what's going on down here in our intestinal tract. Is that something you think of on a regular basis? What's going on in my intestinal tract? What are some things I may need to do to assist my intestines? So as we look here, the genes of your microbiome outnumber your human genes by 150 to 1 and have an enormous impact on our health. But also, it is much worse if we eat unhealthy food and have gut overgrowth with the wrong bacteria. So as we look at this here, what we find is, have you heard of this before? Death begins in the colon. Is this a new phrase to you? Have you heard this before? You know, I believe it literally does. Because we have to focus first on the gut, because if we do otherwise and if we don't think about these toxins that we're bombarded with and we don't clean out our gut, what's going to happen is these toxins are going to spill out over into the next organs and systems of our body as well. So focusing on our intestinal tract is very important. And a toxic gut, which can be constantly leaking poisons and waste throughout our system, affecting the liver and the kidneys as well. So as we look at this, good bacteria in our system can produce molecules like B vitamins, okay? But what we notice is if we have the wrong bacteria, they will produce endotoxins that circulate in our system, disrupting our metabolism. These metabolites are produced during decay. So if you think of decay in a way, or you think of toxins in this, so what I think of is this: if you take all of the trash in your house and you open up your refrigerator door and you throw all of this trash into your refrigerator, it's collecting everything, okay? But now, what is the refrigerator going to do with all of this trash that is bombarded with? It needs to be cleaned out, right? So what we're looking at is assisting the colon, assisting the gut to ultimately assist our overall health as well. And what we see here is these toxins, they can cause inflammation within our intestinal tract, causing a whole host of other health issues as well. And as we continue here, so when we have a lot of gut issues, we can end up having leaky gut or intestinal permeability. And what happens is these small molecules of undigested food, toxins, they could enter our bloodstream, causing autoimmune conditions, which is going to also be inflammation, and a myriad of health issues as well. So certainly looking at assisting the gut, but also reducing inflammation as much as possible. So what we see here, leaky gut can be associated with most chronic diseases that individuals can have. It can be associated with depression, diabetes, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, even rheumatoid arthritis. So we see there is a need to assist the detox pathways of our body. So how about restoring the gut? What are some things we can do to restore the gut here? So one thing we can do is reduce. When we restore the gut, it will reduce endotoxins in our blood, which is fabulous. It will reduce inflammation, and we'll notice that inflammation will calm down. You will absorb nutrition much better than ever before. And restoring the gut, as we look here, we want to eliminate substances that result in a leaky gut. We want to increase our fiber consumption. Also, incorporating glutamine. In one way we could do this, which is really neat. Have any of you chopped up onions and put it in water, created a broth, and you drank that? Have any of you tried that before? That's so beneficial for assisting the intestinal tract because onions are high in glutamine. Also, we see incorporating golden seal and garlic can kill off the bad bacteria within our gut. So incorporating those is really beneficial. So one thing that I want to incorporate this year that we've never done before, and I'd be really interested if you would want to incorporate this with me. At Bella Vita, we really assist individuals with cleaning out their gut. And through this, we put them on a 3 to 5 day colon cleanse where they're reducing inflammation, binding with impurities, loosening the old crustaceous feces within their intestinal tract, increasing bowel function. And you know, it's interesting because the average male American can have upwards to 5 to 22 pounds of feces in them in a given day. And there's actually no medical reason to have a bowel movement every day. But I look at my little boys, Daniel 4 and Giovanni 2, they eat, they run to the restroom. They eat, they run to the restroom. That's how our bodies were designed to work. But sadly, with the standard American diet and the poor lifestyle that individuals have, people experience constipation. So what I would like to incorporate during this Health and Healing Crusade is I would like all of us to collectively do a 3-day colon and gut cleanse reset. Would any of you be interested in doing that? Some of you, would that be cool or what? So what we've done here, let me advance to the slide here. What we've done here is through doing a 3-day gut cleanse, a gut reboot, it will help to eliminate old feces. It will soothe the digestive tract, reduce inflammation, reduce bloating, and you are going to feel lighter. So what we've done is at our smoothie bar, we have them all set up ready to go. So if you want to participate in this colon detox for the next 3 days, what it will entail is 3 bowel drinks. In this bowel drink, it includes fiber. So you're going to increase your fiber intake. It has marshmallow root. It has slippery elm, which is going to be very soothing to the intestinal tract. And it also has ginger in there and peppermint. And it has charcoal, which is going to bind with impurities in your intestinal tract. So you'll receive 3 of those drinks a day. And then we also have our bowel number 1, which has garlic and golden seal and a few other herbs as well that will help to increase the bowel movement. Would you guys like to try that? Cool. So you could find more information about that at the registration booth and also going to the smoothie bar as well. But as I talk about the detox pathways of the system, we always want to dig deeper. And we want to look at how to assist the genes of our body. And you know, that's where Jessica is going to come up and she's going to share how we could assist the genes of our body. But you know, I find it's really interesting because cleansing and detoxing, it's nothing new. It's not a new thing under the sun. And it's interesting because when you look right in the Word of God, you read in 1 John 1:9, if you know this verse and you haven't memorized, If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and what? And to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So certainly that's cleansing in a different realm. We're looking at physically cleansing our systems, but we see the importance of cleansing. It's multifaceted, isn't it? So Jessica is going to share on cleaning up our genes right now, okay?
All right, so I'm Jessica Vieira, Daniel's wife, and I am a registered nurse, and then I went back to school and became a registered dietitian, and it's been a joy and a privilege to work alongside my husband in health ministry. And I definitely love to learn, and we love to help people with their health. And this part of the presentation is going to go into our genes, and hopefully I'll make this simple and easy enough to understand how our genetics can be modified in order to override some of the genetic mutations that we all have. And we all have some level of genetic mutation or not. So you can clean up your genes. Your genetics are not your destiny. Your genes are inside of the human cell, and they are wound and binded together with proteins, and the DNA is part of that. So it's the blueprint for turning different biochemical functions on or off. It tells your heart to contract. Your genetics tells what eye color you have. And it's also involved so closely with your neurotransmitters and your hormones and your overall health. And so people that have a very healthy lifestyle and are doing everything they think is possibly right, but they're still having poor health, then I definitely encourage you to look deeper into the cell and look at the genetics. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, and definitely we have a creator God who designed the most advanced living machinery, which is the human body. So one of the genes that can make you very sick is, if it's dirty or mutated, let's say, is the DAO gene. That's the D-amino acid oxidase gene. And that gene can make you super sensitive to foods and to chemicals and to smells. And I'm sure you know people that, or maybe you yourself have trouble with perfumes or very super sensitive household cleaners. It's possible that your DAO gene is affected. This gene, when it has a mutation, it affects your response to histamine, and that lurks in the foods and beverages. And histamine is also produced by your gut bacteria, so it's a natural reaction that happens. But it can cause problems if it's haywire, and so you can have major food sensitivities and gut problems. The PEMT gene, this is the gene that helps your liver and your cell membranes. This gene affects your body's ability to produce phosphatidylcholine, which is essential, an essential compound for you to maintain cell integrity and to build up the bile so that you have good bile flow. It also helps to reduce the overgrowth of bacteria. So if you've ever had small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO, then you may have problems making phosphatidylcholine, which is involved in your PMT gene and your MTHFR gene. This gene is also important for muscle health and brain development. There are strengths, though, for having this mutation. You may have more support for methylation and a better response to chemotherapy. So some people can do really well with chemotherapy, other people don't. And honestly, that is all related to the genetics of our system. The weaknesses of this gene, you may have had gallbladder issues, again, SIBO, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because you haven't been making that phosphatidylcholine, or pregnancy complications and muscle pain or weakness. Your MTHFR gene is one that it pretty much affects so many people in the United States and in Europe. About 1 in 3 people have at least one MTHFR variant, and 1 in 10 people have variants from both copies of their parents. So the MTHFR, it stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. So when this is affected, there can be a lot of different issues. So what is methylation? Has anyone heard the word methylation before? It's a big word. No. No one's ever heard of methylation? Okay, yeah. Okay, great. A few of my church family members have heard of methylation. Great. So methylation, this is what it does. So this gene helps to add methyl groups, or this is a carbon and 3 hydrogen. If you guys remember any of your chemistry or organic chemistry, it helps to add a carbon and 3 hydrogen to different molecules, and then that turns them on or makes them more active. They activate them, or they make them more absorbable, or that tells them to function. Now, if this MTHFR gene is not working properly, then it's not the chemical pathways or the function that it's supposed to be directing, it's not going to work very well. And so a big one with MTHFR is turning folate into methylfolate. So folate, who knows what folate is? What is folate? It's a vitamin. It's a B vitamin. It's essential for life. So folate needs to turn to methylfolate in order to perform its job well. So MTHFR matters because it is involved in several hundred biochemical reactions happening every day in our body. And it's involved in fertility, in developing a healthy baby. It helps with detoxifying heavy metals in our system. It's important for mental health and brain health. So people with headaches or migraines, this could be they could look to their MTHFR as a possible indicator that it might be mutated or a dirty gene. MTHFR is involved in nervous system health. This really helps to add more myelin sheath around the neurons, all the nerves, the sensory nerves, the motor nerves. They need this like padding or electrical conduits that help insulate it. That's the word I'm looking for, insulation. So MTHFR gene says to the cells, okay, we need more myelin sheath around these nerves, and we need to encapsulate them so that they're not misfiring. Like if you have a wire that's frayed, or the insulation that's wrapped around that wire, if that's cut or broken, then that wire could spark, or it could not work properly at all. If you've ever had a phone charger where the wiring is coming apart and then it stops working, I just had that happen to me yesterday. So you need that insulation to keep those wires there. So your neurons, your nervous system has all this wiring in it. MTHFR is important for cardiovascular health and also liver and gallbladder health, because that phosphatidylcholine that helps with the bile flow needs to be made and methylated, and so the MTHFR gene helps with that. So signs you have methylation problems: depression, anxiety, irritability, stress. It's hard to calm down if you're very stressed or irritable, struggles with fertility, low energy or fatigue, you have cold hands or feet, you get red in the face after a good workout, you have chemical sensitivities too. This gene is involved in that. Also having deficiency in B12, and this is really important for those plant-based and vegan eaters out there. You need to have B12 supplemented. All right. Other signs you have methylation problems. You may have high stress, brain fog. You can't tolerate alcohol. Leafy greens, you notice you feel better after eating a large salad, or you have dark leafy greens regularly. And that can help because there's a lot of folate in those leafy greens. So it kind of overrides the gene mutation there. Maybe you have insomnia or trouble falling asleep. You have elevated homocysteine levels, folate levels are elevated, and B12 levels are elevated. Well, they're high, so wouldn't that tell you that there's plenty there? Well, not necessarily. Some of these tests, especially the blood tests, will measure the inactive forms of these vitamins. And so those vitamins are just staying in the blood. They're not getting into the cell. Going back to this picture. See, you need your vitamins to get inside the cells to be able to function and do their job. You don't want them to be constantly just into the bloodstream, into the circulation. I mean, you need a certain level there, but you need them to go into the cells, which are like the building blocks of your body. All right, so I have this gorgeous photo. Has anyone ever been here? Oh, yes. Does anyone know what this place is? Yes, it's Cinque Terre. I think I said that right. So yeah, this is in Italy. This is the coast of Italy. And Italians are highly susceptible to having methylation, MTHFR gene mutations. And my father-in-law, Danny Vieira, was Italian, and he had the MTHFR mutation. So he received one mutation from his mom and one mutation from his dad. And so he had the MTHFR gene mutation. However, some of these gene mutations can be overcome. Like, you may not realize that you have any problems with these genes because you're living in such a beautiful place like Cinque Terre, and you're socializing with your family and friends, and you have healthy lifestyle. So all that reduces stress, right? Community, connection, soaking your eyes with visual beauty, that reduces stress. Having that closeness, sunny climate, you don't have a lot of stress from the weather. And then they eat a lot of leafy greens. They cook with them. And you want to have cooked leafy greens regularly in your diet, as well as fresh leafy greens too. And so those leafy greens can help override some of those genetic deficiencies. So yes, in my family, MTHFR mutations do run in my family. I have a gene mutation from my mom and a gene mutation from my dad. So I have, to get very vulnerable here, I have depression. I've struggled with depression and anxiety. And so I have the best of both worlds. But, I'm thankful that God's grace is sufficient for me, and we also can rely upon His strength, and we can boast in our infirmities and then have the power of Christ flow through us, because it's not by our own strength or our own might, but it's through God. And He wants to come in and be made strong when we have those weaknesses. So what makes a MTHFR gene dirty? Well, Daniel touched on some of those things with the toxins. Exposure to industrial chemicals, so cleaning chemicals, chemicals that are in factories, chemicals that are in the air. If you've ever looked into chemtrails, I see them all the time, I think. I mean, it's pretty hard to really dig into that stuff, but Dr. Ben Lynch and Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt had a good conversation about that on Facebook one time. And that's something to consider, that there are chemicals, yes, in our air, chemicals from agricultural productions that can still sit and rest in the air. And we have haze in a lot of valleys, and certainly in this valley too. Tuolumne County and Fresno County have higher levels of farm pollutants and chemical pollutants from agricultural purposes than San Joaquin County, but still pretty high in this county. And some people are extra sensitive, so they can tell that they have respiration issues or they have asthma and they can't breathe deeply or feel comfortable in places where they can see the haze or know that there's just a little bit of haze. So again, these are all related to the dirty genes or the gene mutations. Psychological exposure to heavy metals, that's pretty common too, to encounter exposure to heavy metals. And a few examples with arsenic. Arsenic can be found in apple juice and in rice. So it's good to know where your rice comes from. And the Lundberg company, their family-run company, they are in most grocery stores. They test their rice for arsenic levels, and the rice is grown in California. I think most of it is. So also follow Ocean Robbins and John Robbins. They're a father-son team, and they live in the Santa Cruz area, and they have a wonderful, wonderful nonprofit organization called the Food Revolution, and they go into a lot of these details too with the healthiness of our food. Psychological stress. Definitely, we've had psychological stress from the last 2 years with lockdowns, with fear of the virus, with fear of government shutting down businesses. Certainly, psychological stress from home life too. And then physical stress, that can be actually running marathons. You can have a lot of physical stress if you are a regular marathon runner or you run triathlons regularly. That actually just ramps up all the biochemical systems and pathways in our body, and it can cause more free radicals to happen. So it's good to have balance. It's awesome to be able to be an athlete and run and do all that kinds of activity, but you definitely want to have a balance too. Having low thyroid can be a factor. Inadequate B12, inadequate B2, and inadequate folate. These are things in the diet. If you're not getting enough of those in the diet or supplements, that can have a factor. If you consume folic acid, that is actually a risk factor. It can block the folate receptors. And so the natural folate found in foods like beans and leafy greens can't get into the cell because that folic acid got there first and took its spot. That makes sense. So foods with folic acid, pretty much all your packaged foods, and it should say on the ingredients if it was fortified with folic acid or not. So foods with natural folate are things in your beans and your leafy greens. So your lentils, your beans, and all your dark leafy greens. Those are excellent sources. So folic acid is not the same as folate, or better yet, methylfolate. This artificial supplement, it's not the real deal. So if you find that you have a MTHFR gene mutation, you'd find that from a genetic test. And Neurobiologics has a genetic test, and several other companies offer them too. I know many people have probably done the 23andMe. I would recommend going more with a private small company versus one that's owned by Google. And I definitely highly recommend, if anyone feels like they're connecting with some of the health problems that I'm talking about, then definitely get an organic acid test. You know, if you're somebody that can resonate with any of the things I mentioned, please get an organic acid test and specifically look for the B12 deficiency. You want to know how your thyroid's doing. You want to know how your ferritin, which is your iron levels. So elderly folks, they usually have low B12 and low ferritin, just standard across the board. People who eat a vegan or plant-based diet, usually low B12 and low ferritin, even though your blood test may have said, yes, your B12 levels are great. But again, your health is not great. And B12 is like the cornerstone of hundreds of biochemical reactions. So that vitamin is so complex and so important. You want to really know if that is at a good level or not. Most people are deficient in B12. I am deficient in B12. I've had the organic acid test done. So it's basically just a urine test that you do at home, and you mail that in, you freeze it and you mail it in. And it's all sterile. So it's a very easy, clean procedure. And then they'll analyze that and determine how your B12 is doing, because it's looking at the end product of B12 metabolism. It's not looking at it in the circulation, which is just going from head to toe all around. You want to know if it's getting into the cells or not. Supplements, always check with your provider first before adding any new supplement, because some can be really powerful and potent, like glutathione. That is an amazing supplement, and I've been taking that this week to keep my immune system strong and keep me from getting any colds or something. And I've been giving little drops to my kids too. Daniel's been taking it as well. And then a B complex vitamin. You want to do one with natural folate, not folic acid. You may need to supplement with iron, but you need to be careful because you don't want to get too much iron. That can be a problem too. Floridex, which is a Swiss-made liquid supplement. It's one of the best, I think. Also consider supplementing with B12, molybdenum, iodine, and selenium. And for those who have any gut digestive issues, you may want to look into topical B12 supplements like lotions or oils. And you can always talk with me later more on this on your own, or we do offer nutritional consultations through our nonprofit and our business too. Lifestyle habits for MTHFR. You want to eat your leafy greens every day. You want to try to eat organic as much as you can, but avoid, if you can't afford to eat organic, because organic does cost a lot more than conventional, you do want to try to avoid the dirty dozen foods. And the Environmental Working Group keeps a yearly running list of your dirty dozen foods. So generally the spinach, strawberries, peaches, celery, kale, peppers, those are generally, and corn, I think, those are generally in the dirty dozen. So if you buy those, please try to buy them organic. Eat quality protein-rich foods, especially the plant foods like lentils. And if you want to soak your beans, that helps helps make them more digestible. And those are really great sources of fiber and protein. You want to eat until you're 80% full, and the Japanese are very good about this. They have a technique, or I guess it's a philosophy called Hari Hachi Bu. They only eat until 80% full. They don't overeat. And so overeating can cause extra stress on our systems. Do not snack or graze in between meals. That's one of the biggest contributors to weight gain, actually. You want to limit drinking during your meal times and just drink in between meals. And when you first wake up, have like 2 cups of lukewarm water, maybe a squeeze of lemon, and that is great for flushing the liver and getting yourself hydrated. Abstain from alcohol and tobacco, because alcohol does dirty up many of our genes. Tobacco, smoke, absolutely, it does too. Ideally, no caffeine, because caffeine can affect your MTHFR gene. And you want to try to do your best to avoid industrial chemicals. So I highly recommend looking at the Environmental Working Group, because there's a lot of great resources on that website, and it's an awesome website. And then one of the biggest things for MTHFR is stress. You want to find ways to relieve stress. And sleep is one of the best stress reducers. Being in bed by 10:30 p.m. is a good goal to have, and even moving it closer to 10 if possible. I notice it helps me so much with my mood and my overlook for the day. I have less negative thinking, less irritability if I get good sleep. And yes, it's hard when you're a mother or a young mother with little kids. So ladies out there, older ladies, pray for us young mothers. We need your prayers. And then you want to exercise, and try to exercise until you're sweating. Okay. And that helps to also clean up your genes. And soaking your eyes and feasting your eyes upon beauty in nature and reveling in the beautiful creation that God has made. And that also is a huge stress reliever. Deep breathing, try to breathe in for 4 seconds and hold it for 4 seconds and then out slowly for 8 seconds. And do that 3 times. Prayer is also going to be a great stress reliever, and doing like solid prayer 3 minutes a day is better than doing prayer time once for 20 minutes a week. So regular prayer time, at least 3 minutes a day, will help. And meditating upon God's word. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the spiritualism in meditation that's very mainstream. I know it benefits so many people, and that's a beautiful thing that it helps you, but you just want to be very careful what spirits you are inviting if you do get deep into spiritualism and meditation and spiritualism. So definitely I highly recommend finding somebody to help keep you accountable with some of these lifestyle habits, and then you can help to override these dirty genes and these dirty gene mutations. But nothing is quite like the power of the blood of the Lamb. And I have a little short story to close with on the life of Roger Morneau. Does anyone know that name? Yes. There was a documentary recently filmed and put out called Charmed by Darkness. And Mr. Morneau wrote a book called A Trip into the Supernatural. I believe that was in 1998 he wrote that book. And his family growing up, his kids had no idea he was this close to being, inaugurated into a Luciferian cult when he was living in Montreal, Canada in the 40s. And he was chain smoking nonstop and working at a factory. And his coworker was a Seventh-day Adventist Christian who loved Jesus and loved giving Bible studies. And so Mr. Morneau was really into spiritualism, and he saw just some really crazy, wild things that, again, we are in a spiritual warfare, and so we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of darkness. So he would see things, just crazy things, flying things, even in his own home. So he opened his life up to these spiritualistic elements, and they ended up becoming really scary for him. And so that actually encouraged him to seek the light, which is the light of Jesus, because Jesus is the opposite of the devil. So he started talking with his coworker, and his coworker invited him to have Bible studies. And the coworker invited him, Cyril, I think his name was. He invited him into his home, and Mr. Morneau was in his early 20s, I think, and he just chain smoked just the whole time through the whole hour Bible study. And Cyril's wife had asthma, and they were both such a godly couple, and she was such a woman of faith. She allowed him to chain smoke during the Bible study because she believed that God would protect her, and she knew this was so important to give this man this Bible study. Well, it turns out that her breathing was protected. God put a shield of protection around her and her husband, and they were able to live till a ripe old age, as well as Mr. Morneau. Mr. Morneau gave his life to Jesus and started a prayer ministry. So he used this Bible verse to help him overcome his addiction to tobacco and smoking. And one night, during the time he was having Bible studies, one night he had an urge or craving to smoke again, but he was starting to learn about the health message. And so he ended up claiming this promise, because he was taught to claim promises, because that was true, real power. And so he threw all the cigarettes into the toilet and flushed them down and said, "No, by the power of the blood of the Lamb, I can overcome." And he did, and he never smoked after that at all. So praise the Lord for his life and his testimony, and for the promises that help encourage us and bring us health and wellness and vitality, and for the lifestyle messages that we know about we can certainly use to better our health and help others with. So thank you for listening, and hope you enjoy the rest of your time here.